Russia's Vladimir Putin has taken his obsession with the Soviet glory days to a new level, staging a massive pro-war propaganda rally at a packed Moscow stadium on Friday. Several Russians tell CNN that authorities pressured people to attend the event, which was meant to commemorate the 8th anniversary of Russia's takeover of Crimea. Here to discuss is a Russian opposition politician who survived 2 poisonings in Russia, Vladimir Kara-Murza. At this rally, Vladimir, thanks so much for being with us, by the way. We appreciate it. At this rally, I'm sure you saw this, Putin justified the invasion of Ukraine as he stood in front of a banner that read, "For a world without Nazism." I mean, again, with this Nazi talk, it is just so terrifying because it is so deranged that so many Russians are believing this crazy nonsense.
Well, this style of rally that we've all seen yesterday, and of course, this is not the first of its kind that Mr. Putin has staged to try to sort of put up this facade of supposed popular support that he wants to claim. There is so much in sort of harkening back to not only the Soviet past and the rallies that took part in the Soviet Union, but also, frankly, and this makes it doubly hypocritical. And I mean, I would use the word ironic had it not been so serious at the topic of our conversation today. But this banner for a world without Nazism, but so much of the style, so much of the substance of what Vladimir Putin's regime in Russia now represents actually has echoes with Nazism in Germany in the 1930s. I mean, just a few days ago, Mr. Putin gave a speech on national television where he described his political opponents inside of Russia, people like myself and my colleagues in the Russian opposition, as, quote, national traitors. This is a term directly borrowed from Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf, Nationalverräter in German. And of course, this stylized letter Z that has been used by the Kremlin propaganda as sort of a symbol of support for this aggression on Ukraine. I mean, it really does look like a stylized swastika. So, the Vladimir Putin's regime itself, as it sort of tries to make this bogus and outrageous claims that somehow they're fighting Nazism in Ukraine, acquire more and more traits, frankly, of, at the very least, a fascist regime in Russia itself. But I also think it is very important for our viewers not to be fooled by the smokescreen, not to be fooled by this propaganda. Vladimir Putin would like the whole world to think that all Russians support him, that all Russians back this criminal aggression that he's engaging in with regard to Ukraine. But that is not at all the case. And in fact, since this attack began on February 24th, thousands of people all across Russia have gone out into the streets to try to protest. I say try because most of them are immediately arrested and herded away to police stations. It is now a criminal offense in Russia, not just to speak out against this war, but even to call it a war. You can get up to 15 years in prison if you call what Putin is doing to Ukraine a war. But despite this fact, there have been thousands of people all over Russia who have demonstrated to say that this is not our war, this is not being done in our name. And I think it is very important for the world to also hear those Russian voices, not just the voices of the Putin propaganda machine.
No question about it. And you're right to raise that point, and we have reported on that extensively. But I have to ask you, how do you think it got to this point, and how does your experience, I guess, provide maybe a lesson or warning sign missed along the way? It seems as though, and we were talking to the widow of a Putin critic who was poisoned and died, Mr. Litvinenko, and it seems as though what she told us is correct. There were so many warning signs missed, ignored by the world because it was just convenient, perhaps, to let Putin's aggression just pass in previous episodes. What are your thoughts?
Well, frankly, don't even get me started on this because I cannot express the feelings of frustration and, frankly, rage that a lot of us in Russia feel these days, because we have been trying to tell the world for 22 years now just who Vladimir Putin was. And it wasn't any kind of enigma. It wasn't a secret. I mean, one of the first things Vladimir Putin did when he came to power in the year 2000 was reinstate the Stalin-era Soviet national anthem as a national anthem of the Russian Federation. I mean, Russia is a country of symbols, and this is as powerful a symbol as you can get. And of course, in the very early years of his rule, Vladimir Putin engaged in a intensive crackdown against democracy and civil society inside of Russia. I mean, very quickly turned the imperfect democracy that we had back in the 90s to the perfect dictatorship that we have today, one after another, destroying independent media, opposition parties going after his political opponents, imprisoning opponents, then murdering opponents. we recently marked the 7th anniversary of the assassination of Russian opposition leader Boris Nemtsov, who was literally gunned down in front of the Kremlin in February of 2015. And you know, all this time, Western leaders continued to shake Mr. Putin's hand and invite him to high-level summits and try to find ways of dealing with him, you know, and looked into his eyes and got a sense of his soul and declared resets with him and so on and so forth. And this is where we are today, facing a large-scale war in the middle of Europe, facing war crimes, and what I would argue are crimes against humanity that the Putin regime is conducting. And this was so predictable. This is what's enraging about it, because there's only one way that the appeasement of dictators ends. And we are seeing this now. And yes, it is also the fault, not just of those people in Russia who chose to stay silent over the years in the face of the repressions by Mr. Putin, but frankly, there's also significant responsibility by Western leaders who chose to turn a blind eye when Mr. Putin was destroying democracy in Russia and then engaging in aggression against other countries.
And so what is your answer in terms of the larger question in all of this, which is how do we expedite the end of Putin's stranglehold on Russia and his attempt to essentially continue to bully the world? Do you have a clear and concise answer that I suppose a lot of people can agree on? I guess that is part of the problem, is that there are just so many different points of view as to how to accomplish this without World War III breaking out.
Well, first of all, to state the absolutely obvious, only Russians in Russia can change the situation in our country. You know, nobody's advocating any kind of regime change from outside. It's, you know, only Russians in Russia can effect political change, and this will happen. And Mr. Putin has really accelerated all these processes in the last 4 weeks with his aggression against Ukraine. I mean, he's had a lot of problems with Russian public opinion, especially among the younger generation, in any case, because, you know, this man has been in power now for more than 22 years. Many people are simply getting tired of seeing the same face on a television screen for such a long time. And so political change can only come from within Russia itself. But it is important that the free world, the community of democracies, stands in solidarity with those people who want to see a free and democratic Russia, a Russia that would respect the rights of our own people at home, and that would also behave itself as a responsible citizen on the international stage. It is very important, and I think this should be one of the highest priorities for the West right now, to provide the truth to the Russian people in the Russian language, to open the eyes of Russian society on these heinous crimes that Putin is committing supposedly on behalf of our country. Because as mind-boggling as it sounds, many people in Russia do not even know that there is a real war going on in Ukraine. They do not even know about the targeting of civilians, the cluster bombings of residential areas, the bombings of maternity wards, for God's sake. People do not know about this. And of course, as you know, and as you've reported, in the last 4 weeks, the same time that he's launched an aggression against Ukraine, Vladimir Putin has also destroyed what remained of independent media inside Russia. And so there's a total information blockade and a sort of a censorship wall that's been erected. And I think it is important for the free world to help breach that censorship wall. And it's also very important not to let up especially those targeted sanctions against those high-level oligarchs and human rights abusers around Putin, who have for years gotten used to being able to steal in Russia and then spend and stash away that stolen money in the West. And for such a long time, the West has enabled this behavior. We have seen this finally stop in the last 4 weeks. It has taken a war in the middle of Europe to make it stop. And it's really important now that the West stand firm and stand in solidarity with the millions of people in Russia who want our country to become a normal, modern democracy. I have absolutely no doubt that this day will come.
All right. Well, Vladimir Kara-Murza, thank you very much for your time. As you were telling our team, a current opposition leader to what is going on in Russia right now. Thank you so much for your time, Vladimir. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Good luck to you.